you're just a bit low bandwidth. You can tell.
Okay, let me. That's fun because the desktop PC we use it so little now that when I do switch it on.
Yeah.
What I should be doing is using the Surface for the chat room and my Lumia for the. Things take a long time to download over a DMEG connection. You wouldn't know about that anymore.
Not anymore. I do. Do you remember it well though? Yeah, all too painful memories of.
Yeah. I'll tell you, you haven't lived if you haven't waited 3 days to download an IE4 beta over a 56K modem. Those were the days.
Yeah, first modem I had was a 1200, which I borrowed from work.
Wow.
And that was slow, but and that was when I went on the internet and I said to my dad, "You can get the weather in America," and he said, "Great, but what do I want the weather in America for?" But it's the internet. Downloading Windsock, as we mentioned last week. I don't know what's happening to Gary. His connections keeps failing. Right. Well, I've started the stream off, so the recorder's going. So we'll add Gary as we can. I'll keep trying to add him. Jason, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Okay, good. Feels like a lot of news since we were last recorded. It's only a week, but it just feels like there's quite a bit gone on this last week.
Yes, yeah, it does seem like it's been quite a busy week.
Yeah, yes, I think the Google's event. Oh, is that? Oh,
it's a dark Gary.
I can see Gary.
Sort of. You might be able to see me better in a second. There you go.
Oh, there we go. I can see Gary in the light.
That's one of the problems you see when you say.
That was sounds like a song.
So I was going to say it's one of the problems with me disabling my voice control for the show. I couldn't actually turn the lights on with my voice then.
Good evening, Gary.
Good evening. Apologies for being slightly late. We had a power outage, so it seems to be quite a regular occurrence at the moment.
Looking very crisp and sharp tonight. I did have a look at how I can get your video on with me. So I reckon if I get the right camera angle, because the display up here, which has got the Skype recording on when you're on, is over there, and the recording machine's over here. So I reckon if I get the right camera angle on a webcam, and I've got a little webcam, that I could angle it so we could see us both on the screen at the same time, except the webcam didn't work.
Oh well, it was a good start.
Yeah, it was a good idea. And the actual machine that's doing the webcam now, the built-in machine, is sort of on the corner of the desk, so I can't really angle that round. So anyway, Gary looking very sharp, Jason looking like an Xbox avatar.
As always. I don't know how he managed to get that look every week.
Yeah, you never age. That's a good thing, Jason. You don't age.
Absolutely.
So, as I was saying, we've got quite a bit to talk about this week. A Google event, and there's been quite a few news items and things. So, yeah, we've got thought we can talk about the Google events, and particularly Android TV. Google taking another stab at Android TV, or a device, software for the TV. And also we can talk about the post about what Microsoft should be doing for that. There's some other stuff in the news. We've got Roku apps. We've got some more rumors about the next version of Windows branding. You haven't tried to make a calendar appointment on your Windows phone, Gary? That's
why I was late, really. I should have said that. Gone with that explanation, shouldn't I?
Yeah, so we can talk about that.
Then you tried to use Cortana to work around it, and that didn't work either.
Yeah, that didn't work either, because... oh, dear.
Yeah, then we've got some app updates as well. So I think we'll start with the Google event. So there's obviously Android TV, but just before we get to Android TV, first of all, Gary, from a developer point of view, what did you think of the Android event? Or the Google event, it's just a Google I/O.
Google I/O, as it's called, which is their main developer event this year. Quite an interesting one this year. I think the biggest thing from my point of view is the way they're trying to, I'm not saying force, but guide developers towards standards when it comes to look and feel.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got this new thing called Material Design, which is a bit, I guess it's a bit inspired by Microsoft's design language, but slightly different. If you think of Google Now and the cards type thing, that's basically the concept they're going for. Lots of flat colors, but with some 3D motion to give you an idea of depth and navigation, more to do with navigation. It's a bit difficult to explain, but there's some videos out there which actually show you how it works. And this is basically, they're trying to encourage all developers to follow this standard. They'll be following it through all their products. The whole Android itself will start looking that way. All their add-ons will start looking that way as well. So I guess it's a bit like the design language that Apple tried to get you to follow when you do stuff, and obviously the one that Windows Phone does as well. It'll be interesting to see if they start enforcing it over time, because at the moment most apps wouldn't be that way. There's not much consistency in Android apps. And one of the beauties of Android from a developer point of view is that there's very little control over it. You just put whatever out there you want to put out there, unless you try and put it on the Nokia store. So I think that's potentially a risk for them, though a very good idea, because it should help with a look at avoidance of look and feel from degradation across the platforms. I think that the other thing that they've obviously tried to address the fragmentation in the marketplace as well. They're coming up with standards of product. So they've looked at the low end. Obviously, they've seen the inroads that Microsoft are making into the market there with the low end Nokias and also the X series. And they've come up with this thing called Android L, which is sort of like a platform that OEMs can sign up.
Android 1, was it?
Android 1, sorry. Yeah. It's very easy to get those confused.
It is, yeah.
They look the same. If you put me in the wrong typeface, they look the same.
Yeah.
Which is what I just read. Android 1, which is basically the bottom end market type Android, and that will basically say there's lots of rules around that, which means we basically can't skin it. So it's going to be a standard out-of-the-box experience for anybody who builds a phone with that. And I basically set a set of guidelines in terms of the hardware. Said basically this is a hardware which you can build as a low-end machine and we know works. If you do this, we'll give you updates quicker. So there's an incentive to do it. Whether many OEMs will sign up for it, I'm not sure, but it does sound like a good idea. It sounds like a very good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, from a developer point of view, the biggest thing in the marketplace on Android at the moment is fragmentation. They also announced Android L, reading the script this right way this time, which is the next generation of Android. Has some interesting features from the developer point of view, particularly in terms of the way, at a very low level, things like the compilers and that work. They're abandoning the Java compiler, which has been the main compiler they've had up to now. So that's going to be interesting, whether apps have to be rebuilt to work on that platform.
It's interesting as well, they go for the code name L, which itself is a code name
for something else.
Well, I guess it's Android 5.0, isn't it? But,
yeah.
so the code name gets a code name.
Yes. Android 5.0 L, which might be called something else in the future.
I wonder if they're going to the car moniker of the 70s, where you had the L and the GL and the GLS. if you're really posh.
That'd be quite fun. Yeah. I think, well, they also had ones as well, didn't they? God. Yeah. I think they actually probably will have a brand name before it goes out to market. They're probably looking for sponsorship at the moment. Android Lion Bar.
Oh, no.
No, I don't. But it does actually look very interesting from a developer point of view. And there's a lot of trying to move away from fragmentation in the market and enforcing it by saying you can't have the Google apps unless you go this way. So it's going to be, as we like to say, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean the Material Design looks very much like how the Google Now works with the cards anyway, doesn't it?
It is, yeah.
So it's very much built on that.
Yeah, they've obviously thought that's a really good interface. It shows on some of the other things we're going to probably talk about. That's a good interface to work with. It's very simplistic. People understand it, get it. So, yeah, I think that's the way they're trying to drive you. I think it works for informational apps. I'm not sure it works so much for interactive apps. But I need to see the full design language before I start to say for definite that's the case. It was interesting. I was at a Xamarin event last week, and they are already looking at supporting Android L, because one of the big things in this event was they actually announced Android L to developers, and you can get it and you can play with it.
Yeah.
Which is the first time out that Google have really done that recently. Up until now, most of the stuff you've only been able to get it once it's actually out on the phones as a developer.
Yeah, and I believe you can get the images, can't you? For if you've got Nexus 5, you can get the.
Yeah, Nexus 5 and Nexus 7 of the right type, you can get the images and play away with it, which is great. And this was really something the Xamarin guys picked up on, because it means they're actually going to be able to be up and running with their compiler as soon as it launches, which is great. I mean, they're very good at keeping up on targets, because they actually had the code support of the X2 Nokias available the day they had launched. So that's going to be really good from my point of view, because it's going to mean all my apps are going to port over to L fairly seamlessly.
So, Jace, did you see? I get this is not really your bag, but did you see any of it from a sort of a Microsoft point of view?
No, I didn't see any of it live. And the only things I kind of read was really just as Gary was talking about. It's interesting how Google have started to push to try and get some kind of standardized experience, which is obviously what Windows Phone has pushed from the start, and iOS has to a degree, hasn't it? So yeah, it's certainly interesting that they're starting to realise that actually the fragmentation is hurting them more than it's helping them.
Yeah, I think the material design looked very nice, and it's good to see. It's sort of hints at Windows Phone and sort of the Metro UI, but it's not the same. It's their own thing, and it's a little more. It's got animation and things like that in there, so that look a little bit more. I think skeuomorphic is the word, isn't it? That we sort of went away with, and now it seems to be back a little bit, but it's still got this very flat design, but with the concept of, I think you'd say it's like Z-plane, wouldn't you, where the layers are stacked over each other. But I think it looked quite good, elegant UI. I can't think, apart from the other devices which we'll talk about in a minute, I can't think there was too much else for sort of the consumer side. Some of the apps, I guess, Gmail and other things look better, but we won't really see what they're like until we get probably the close to the final versions of L, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
So the two things that caught my attention was Android Wear, and really I suppose the central point of the presentation was that it's Android everywhere. It's not just on phones, tablets, and it's now on any device. And one of those Android Wear was the watches, which I know they announced a while ago, but we actually got to see what it would look like. What do you think? Are you interested in one of those watches?
I love the look of the Motorola, the Moto 360. I think that's how a smartwatch should look. Although possibly a little slimmer than that, but that's going to depend on battery technology as things move on. But I just think, for me, a watch face is round. I just think it makes a big difference to be able to do that. I think the interface is great. I do think that whole material design works very nicely on the watch face. It becomes unintrusive. I like the fact that the notifications down the bottom. So I guess it's the fact that I have to have an Android phone.
Sorry, say that again.
And my only real objection would be I'll have to have an Android phone to work it with.
Yes, you would. I mean, it's fully geared up for Android. And I guess I would be the target market for that, but I've got this nice Hugo Boss watch which I got for a present, so I like that sort of more stylized watch, and I don't know whether I would bother with those. They're not a bad price though.
Oh no, I mean I think that there's, because the Galaxy version, which was launched at the same time, is less than $200, isn't it? So that's quite attractive. If you could get a sub £100 smartwatch in the UK, which I'm hearing rumours that Asus may come up with one around about the £80 mark, which would be astonishing, then that would be quite tempting as a standalone watch. I actually like the watch faces on the gear. So I think that's one thing I really did like, was the look of them. Because they look like real watches, and I think it's because of the type of displays they've chosen. The problem with those displays is the charging on them. They're not going to last very long. I know Motorola are looking at getting around this by having Qi charging, which is a good idea. Take the watch off, put your watch stand overnight, and it charges up when you're ready in the morning for a whole day. But I could see them running out of charge during the day, because if you heavily use them.
Yeah, and that's especially when they're new as well. That's what you're going to do, aren't you?
Yeah. So I see. I definitely see the potential on them, and I think they are the best smartwatches I've seen so far. I'll be interested to see what Microsoft come up with, because they're being touted as launching something in October. Weirdly, they're talking about having the display on the underside of your arm, which seems a bit weird, but but that may be just someone misreading something. But yeah, I think there's definitely some market out there. What's really interesting is this whole thing is that people developing the watches are probably going to have to pay Microsoft license fees for patents again. Because they seem to have licensed every type of bit of technology you'd want to use in a watch.
Yeah, and you can imagine that's coming from Google that will do that. But although no, maybe not. Maybe that's not what they do at the moment, is it?
Yeah, no, the device manufacturers have to. But no, I was very impressed with them. I think they are definitely the right way to go. I think that they're going to give people like Pebble and that are going to really have to get their finger out to come up with something to match them. Probably force Pebble and people like that to go more cross-platform. I know they've already talked about doing a proper official Microsoft app. There are unofficial ones now, yeah, I think that's where it's going to go. What it will be interesting to see if Microsoft one lives up to the promise and there's actually cross-platform, because I think that will shape the market a bit as well.
Jace, you were going to jump in?
Do you think? Yeah, I was just going to say. I mean, do you think that smartwatches can ever kind of grow beyond a niche kind of techie type gadget?
I think
because I mean, there's.
I was just going to say that the key thing about a smartwatch to make it grow beyond a techie thing is it has to be a watch first. It has to be a good watch, good wearable watch first, which none of them have been up to now. If you can get that and then have all the add-ons, then it becomes slightly more attractive to people.
Yeah, because I know Ian just said, obviously, he's got a nice watch. I've got a really nice watch, and you're looking at a really good jeweller's, and you can pay anywhere up to £1,000 or more for a watch. Watches are, in many ways, a nice bit of jewellery. People like a nice quality watch, and that kind of puts me off. And I wonder whether or not the future of the smartwatch is actually whereby you have a really nice, high-end watch that you paid a considerable amount of money for, and it looks really nice, but that the glass has like an electronic layer to it, so that when it wants to display information to it becomes opaque and turns into a digital display. But actually, when it's not in use, you just see the actual hands and the movement behind the watch.
A clever idea.
That's a very good idea.
So save a lot of power. I think you've just sussed it, Jason. That's where it's got to go. I think that's certainly what they're trying to do in terms of the look of the watches that they've come out with on the Gear ones. Because if you look at the Moto watch face, it looks like a really good high quality watch face. And it's got that sort of 3D depth to it as well. It actually looks like a real watch. When I first saw it, I actually thought. I didn't actually realise it was the Moto for a while. I thought it was a real watch that someone actually put it out. So I think that there is possibility there. Now, the other thing to remember is our generation wears watches. At the moment, the sub 22, 23, 24 generation don't tend to wear watches at all.
I can't get my kids to put their watch on in the morning.
And I think this is actually a way of getting that watches more common in that marketplace.
Yeah.
And I think one of the interesting things, because one of the sort of rumours I'm hearing about the Microsoft watches, it may be very services based. It may actually not rely on the platform it's connected to very much, and that might be the future, where you've got a watch which gives you notifications without you having to carry your phone.
Yeah,
that I think could be quite an interesting thing for some generations, some areas, particularly when you start getting into the workplace and you're not allowed to carry your phone, but most people won't stop you wearing your watch.
I think the cross-platform thing from Microsoft, in hypothetical device, if Microsoft release one, and they make it so that it doesn't matter what phone you've got, that will be a good differentiator from Android. And I'm sure if Apple release a watch, that will be tied to iOS, and you're having an iPhone. So actually, I think that would be a great opportunity for Microsoft to just go with, to have a broad appeal if it works with Android, iOS, Windows Phone, and whatever else they can, and even maybe standalone as well.
Well, I do think Google have got right is the level of what they've put on the watch. It's not overpowering. It doesn't try to do everything. It just does exactly the sort of things you need on a watch, on a notification system. It becomes your new notification system basically. without trying to be a Twitter client, a Facebook client, that sort of stuff. It doesn't need to be that. I mean, although you can bring a keyboard up on it, it's not going to be the easiest thing to type on. That's what your phone's for. It's more get notifications and respond yes/no answers to them.
Yeah, and you see whether you look at your watch and see whether you need to get your phone out of your pocket. I suppose that's the key.
Yeah. So I certainly see a future film, but it's a challenging future.
Yeah, I think these initial devices look a little bit chunky for my taste, and I was tempted when I saw the price and it wasn't that particularly that expensive, but I thought no, I'd rather wait and see what happens, especially if Microsoft brings something out that's cross-platform.
I did actually see someone wearing one of the Galaxy ones the other day, and that was quite interesting because it didn't look as chunky as the normal Galaxy watch does, which surprised me, and actually looked like a watch. So I think there is definitely possibilities there.
I like Jason's idea. I think I'm going to get that patented.
Get that patented quickly. You can't patent it now because you made it a published work.
I know. Yeah, it's funny. I said that to because I was chatting to a guy at work, and he is really into watches. You know, he spends about £1,000 on a really nice watch, and you know, you can see the movement when you turn the watch over. You can see the movement through the back, and you know, we were chatting about it because he's really into Apple gear, and he was saying how much he'd like an Apple smartwatch, and I kind of said then, but you'd be giving up, you know, a really nice watch. So that's when we kind of started talking about it. And I said, you know, the glass panels where you flip a switch and they go opaque. If they could do that kind of thing, so you still get the quality watch, but so I said, oh no, now I can't patent it because I've told you about it.
The thing I've always thought will come at some point is a watch with a pull-out screen. So you get to like using the fold screen technology. There's like a scroll on the side of it. You just literally pull out the side and have a nice screen to read all your notifications on.
Yeah, I like the idea of that, or a little holographic projector. That's what you really want.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Projector on top there. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Just beam it directly onto my retina, and I'll be fine.
Yes. Well, that's where, it's interesting.
There was also some 3D glasses, I think it was, where they did that. I can't remember who it was by, but basically they project the image just directly onto the retina.
Yeah, and that's
scary. That's the movie where the beam strength goes up and your eyes shrivel away.
But I mean, taking that scary point of view, that's actually very practical, and you could do eye tracking as well. I mean, if you use something like the Amazon Fire technology. With the forward cameras, if you had those surrounding your watch face, you could quite easily track where your eye was and beam information directly onto your eye.
I'm not keen on that idea.
No.
Interestingly, a lot of people as well saying that the watch kind of almost replaces Google Glass, and that no longer will become a mainstream product. That will stay as it is. It's as a sort of niche device, and the mainstream wearables is the watch.
That kind of makes sense,
especially at £1,000 for the Google Glass anyway. So that was the watch. Yeah, like you, I'm pretty interested. It's definitely an area to watch, and no pun intended. And it'll be good to see what Microsoft's response, if any. But a cross-platform Microsoft approach would be a way of doing something different.
Yeah.
And also see what Apple do in September.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm hearing that the Apple one is going to be very fitness and oriented. Well, actually, similarly, the Microsoft one is going to have lots of sensors in it. So interesting approaches, because that's a different approach to the one that Google have taken.
Yeah.
Our kids will be saying in the future, you remember when our parents used to wear a watch to tell the time?
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, remember when they actually carried these things around? They called phones. It's burnt into the eye, like. So the other platform, effectively, that they announced, it's not really strictly a separate platform. It's just a different view of the same platform. Is Android TV, which is Google's third attempt at a 10-foot interface.
Yeah, I think so, isn't it?
Must be about number 3 by now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's the original Android TV, Google TV, which was designed to bring all the content in with HDMI inputs and IR blasting, and at the time we were kind of skeptical that this was a bit complex and a bit much for the market, and which it turned out to be pretty much the case. Then we've got Chromecast, which is a sort of cheap dongle that you plug into your machine, into your TV, sorry, and then you can send content to it. But this is something else, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, I think it must be their fourth, because they have another one in between Android, Google TV, and.
I think you're right. I think there is another one. Yeah.
Which I can't remember the name of. It must have been really exceptional.
Oh, it's the Q.
Yeah, Q. That's it. Yep, that's right.
Yes, never came out, did it?
Yep.
Oh.
Q, so yep. So there we go. Fourth of them.
So Android TV. Well, so what did you just explain to us, Gary, what you think that looks like?
I think it's actually very much. It's not all singing, all dancing. It doesn't try to integrate your TV feeds into it. It's an over TV design, targeted very much at TV manufacturers. What I could work out. So this might be the interface you have for your internet, your smart TV, your internet TV, going up against the Rokus of the world. A lot of content. One interesting thing about it, it also doubles up as a Chromecast as well. So it could make your TV a Chromecast type target, which would be quite cool if it was all integrated. That would be a very interesting way of approaching it. So yes, I think they mentioned Sharp as one of their partners. So you can see TVs coming out in a few probably years time with this built in. Yeah,
I mean I know they tried to get that with Google TV, but that just never caught on. But like you said, that was about integration. This is more about being a simple user interface of it, and it's basically the phone interface, but just redefined. It's the core of it is still standard Android, which I suppose makes it easy then for developers just to come up with a 10-foot UI on top of existing services.
Yeah, it's actually going to be very easy to develop for. So that's a definite plus point in this respect.
And there's the apps that were on there. I guess you'll get the usual thing. You'll get Netflix, maybe you'll get Amazon, but you'll get all the sort of TV providers. I guess you get maybe iPlayer and Sky. Well, Sky tend to go with the Now TV, don't they? Push that for set-top boxes. So I guess we'll see all that kind of stuff. But there were some other apps on there, sort of movie browsing apps and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see what that's like. I suspect that they'll do set-top box as well as integrated devices, but they didn't really say whether they were going to build their own, like with Chromecast they manufacture and sell that. It seemed to be more of an OEM system, and we'll see sort of third-party with set-top boxes.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what they're going for.
So the question is why do Google feel the need then to bring Android to the TV again?
I think it's a growing marketplace, to be honest. I mean, I've heard that developers are having very successful app sales on things like the LG TV with their new interface. So I think that there's a marketplace out there. They want to be in on it. That seems to be their general thing. If there's a marketplace out there, they want to be in on it.
Yeah. And I guess, of course, it's the main selling thing to get Google TV, their service, their TV movie service on a TV, isn't it? So you can rent and buy movies from that. And if you want to do that, then that's how you do it. Either that or the Chromecast. That's the only way you can do it.
Yeah.
So that pushes their services, and I think it looked like a nice operating system. It's interesting that they've got Chromecast and then they've got this as well, which is Chromecast Plus, this extra layer.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Chromecast will still be the direct-to-consumer sales thing, and this will be what goes into TVs.
Yeah, I suppose so. This would be the kind of thing competes with, say, the Samsung Smart TV.
Yeah.
Smart Hub. Yeah.
And the LG Hub that they introduced.
Yeah, and I suppose for OEMs building cheaper, the cheaper set-top, the cheaper HD TVs, so that you would find a lower end of the market, they could just stick this on, and there's no R&D needed to do their own UI.
That's right. Yeah.
Jason, did you see any of the user interface on this?
No, I didn't actually. No, I didn't catch. The only thing I've seen is kind of pictures from your blog posts, etc.
I mean, it looks very nice. Like I say, it's using that material design and everything else, but it's a crowded market. You've got the Fire TV from Amazon pushing Amazon services. Now you've got this. You've got Apple TV. it's a crowded market. But like you said, there's a market out there, and Google want to get in on it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely in terms of smart TVs is definitely the way things are going. The TV manufacturers are always looking for new ways to sell you a brand new TV. 3D was their one example of that effort, which didn't necessarily take off, and now it's all Ultra HD and obviously the smart TV components. And it always makes us look back and think Media Center would have made a great interactive TV interface if they could have sold it in enough places.
Yeah, a few people tried it, but it would. I mean, yeah, it would have done.
Yeah, I mean, it had all the extensibility built into it. It had the application interface, and but clearly that wasn't to be.
Well, that brings me on to the next point. This is what I did a post on this the other day. We were talking about it on Twitter. Is so if you're in the Amazon, if you use Amazon services, you've got Prime, then and you're in the US because where the device is, you've got the Amazon Fire TV. But Amazon also have their stuff on other platforms as well. If you're in the Apple world and you use iTunes and you rent and get all your content from iTunes, then an Apple TV is the best device for you. It's now reduced, £80 now, plug it into your TV and you've got all the Apple services. You've got Chromecast and you can have Android TV. So if you're in the Google world, you've got an Android phone and you want to start renting content from Android Marketplace or from Android from Google TV and Google Movies, then you've got the Google device. So they're all ways of getting content onto the TV and from the various ecosystems. But this is where I sort of got thinking, where's Microsoft's play in this? Yes, they've got the Xbox One, but at £400 and for a big box, and we've talked about this before, these big boxes are too much for some people. Look at, say, Gary's case. Gary's in the Microsoft ecosystem, but doesn't want a big box like the Xbox One, or doesn't need the expense. He's not a gamer, but you'd be someone who should be ideal for consuming Xbox Music, Xbox Video services, but you've no way of doing that on your TV.
Well, I have, because I could use the apps on Windows 8, which I've got that plugged in. Yeah. But the other thing is, I would say, isn't this the Xbox 360? Because I mean, I can pick a 360 up for about £70 now.
So is that Microsoft's answer? To me, that's not a good device. What I kind of envisage was you go into PC World and you see the Microsoft TV box, and it's a Apple TV, a little set-top box type thing. It's £99. You plug it in and you sign in with your Windows account, and you've got all the content on there. And it syncs up with your Windows phone, does a mirroring, it does whatever with.
Yeah, I could see that actually. I could see that being a good thing in the market. I just don't think I'll do it.
I think while the Xbox 360 is certainly within the price bracket, the actual experience itself is just dreadful. It's so slow.
Yeah, I guess that. I mean, I haven't used it for ages, and that's probably why I haven't used it for ages, because it's so slow. I mean, the experience on the PC is pretty good, but I agree. I definitely agree that the experience.
I mean, the ultimate experience for me would be, like you said, a Windows 8 machine. I mean, if I was given sort of free reign, you take Windows Media Center, you get the team back on it, you update it, you get it so it's got native Xbox Video and Xbox Music support, and then you get your third-party apps in there, and bring it in with all the modern UI stuff, and then you've got a nice little set-top box, and you've got our powered device even.
Yeah, I mean, the other thought on this is that we've got Miracast coming to virtually all the phones. Does that do away with this need for this?
Yeah, see, I was thinking about Miracast. Now I've got the little Netgear device that plugs into HDMI, and then it's also got a USB input for power. And yes, it works great, but I was playing around with it, and it works great. I picked a movie, was playing it, and displaying the screen on the tablet and on the TV, and then I made the mistake of turning the screen on the tablet off, and the screen on the TV went off. So from that perspective, it works really great, but it is mirroring the display. So as soon as you turn one off, you've turned the other one off.
Yeah, which is the only way. Gets it right.
Yeah, yes, and that's exactly what I was thinking when Ian was talking about Chromecast. And the only way around that is to say, instead of mirroring my desktop onto the TV, I want to expand my desktop and treat it as a second screen. The problem then is, of course, unless you've got a physical mouse attached to your tablet, you can't then control the screen.
Yeah, and it's all way too complicated for.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, no, absolutely it is. So, like I say, I was just thinking about mirror cards, but in reality, for a particular task, it works really great. If you wanted to show some pictures but use the tablet to control the screen, it works great. But for an actual, it doesn't work in a streaming scenario. With the Chromecast, you hand off to the Chromecast device and that's it. So unfortunately, it's not. While it is a cheap option, it doesn't really work.
I mean, the Xbox One does a great job. The user interface is great. You've got a remote control. I have no problems with that. Netflix works brilliant. It's the best Netflix experience, and I don't really use Xbox Video, but I guess it's a good experience on there as well. It's just down to the fact that someone like Gary, or even someone not technical, who just has a Windows phone and is looking at getting a set-top box, and that would bring everything together. So it's not necessarily the center of your digital home like Windows Media Center was, but it's a part of it that allows you to stay within and say rent movies from Microsoft and whatever, and it's just a simple HDMI connection and a remote control, and that's it. And then apps.
And taking Jason's point on Twitter, though, we talk about services. Microsoft are talking about being very much a services company. Xbox Live Music and Video are services. If they expanded those out and said, "Hey, Rocco, you can put this on your device," now that would be an answer as well, without actually having to bring out a separate device.
Yeah, that was your point you were saying, weren't you?
Yeah. So also, just go back to your point about the Xbox One. Actually, I find the Xbox One interface to be really flawed, and in fact, we had a good example of that this evening. I got home from work, and my wife was trying to log into the Amazon Prime Instant Video app, and I said, "How come it's asking you to kind of log in again?" And she said, because it should have your details saved. And what had happened was the box signs in as me. She had fired up the app, and of course it's trying to use my saved credentials, which don't exist. I haven't got an Amazon Prime account.
Right.
We had to go back to the home screen, sign in as her, and then go to the Amazon app. We couldn't find what she was looking for, so they said, "Oh, we'll just rent it from Blinkbox." Flicked across to Blinkbox, but then of course she needs to switch to me because it's my Xbox user. So obviously there's ways around that. We could make sure that everyone had got the credentials for the services we use programmed in on their user interface. But from that perspective, I still find the Xbox One interface too complex for that kind of, for a streaming device. It's still, you really do need to think about how you're using it. And even more frustrating is we've got something streaming on Amazon Prime Instant Video. The kids walk in the room, and it's something, we were trying to watch the Robin Hood TV series, and my 7-year-old will walk in the room and it says, "Hi," logs him in, and then it goes to a blank screen going, "I can't stream this content because it's not age appropriate." It's like, come on. So I think for now it isn't an ideal opportunity,
right.
but yeah, to come on to my comments on Twitter, I just think it. Well, I guess starting from this, I guess I'm an old fuddy-duddy that I just don't want all these multitude of boxes under my TV. I've got a Humax device, I've got the Xbox, and to be quite honest, that's one set-top box too many. And I just don't get this need to have an additional device plugged into the TV, which is yet another input. But really where I was coming from is the fact that, and I think in some ways this kind of, my thinking was along the same lines as Ed Bott's excellent post on Dropbox. I see these kind of services becoming a feature of a TV, and I think as soon as they become a feature of a TV, these set-top boxes just become redundant. And that's where I think Microsoft is better off focusing on getting its services on these boxes while they exist, or onto smart TVs, rather than trying to get you to purchase yet another box that sits under the TV.
Yeah, I mean, part of me agrees with that. Yeah, I do agree that Microsoft do need to get. I mean, look at Netflix. You can get Netflix and anything and everything, and that is one of the benefits of their service. So I agree that really they should try and push it out. It just seems to be that the market is going away from cross-platform to standalone boxes for a service, so an Amazon box for an Amazon service, Google box for Google, Apple, and so on. Maybe Microsoft could break that and go using the cross-platform approach, which they started to do now, and be on everything. Then that would be good. But they don't seem to do that, and I think whether Xbox video is important enough, I don't know. For within Microsoft, you know, whether Xbox video is worth pushing to other platforms, maybe that's the point, that they don't really care too much. But it just seems to me that to make this nice closed ecosystem that Apple have got, you get the best experience if you pick all the bits from their system. Android's almost like that, and Microsoft don't seem to have that because they've got a few missing pieces.
Mm.
And sorry, just to finish on that, one other thing on the TVs as well is people keep TVs longer than set-top boxes. So maybe that's unless the TVs start to become more like PCs where they can be updated, the apps, then that's an issue that they end up out of date.
Yeah, and I think if the TV is just running something like Google TV, then it's simple enough to keep that updated.
Yeah.
But I just think I think if those sort of services, we can't get Netflix or Amazon on our Humax device, but if we could, then that would certainly be another way. That's my ideal box, and I think while I know we're moving to a streaming world, I don't think we're quite there yet. And maybe when we get there, then that will be the Humax box gone. In which case, then yes, I'd have room for another box. But
so that's only because of the quality of your network there.
Yeah, very complain about.
Yeah, but also I think in some ways the market's already too crowded. It's like you've got the Sky little set-top box, the Sky Now box. You've got Android TV. You've got Apple TV. You can buy a Chromecast device. It's already become quite flooded, and how do you choose between which one you want? I guess if you're interested in getting Sky services, yes, you go for the Sky Now box, and Sky does have quite a big hold over the UK. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think I read, it might have been a couple of weeks ago now, that YouView have lost their battle to keep the name, so YouView have got to try and reinvent themselves somehow. So yeah, I just think really that these sort of services will just become a feature of the TV, and I just can't imagine people having yet another box. I mean, ultimately, I think game consoles are on borrowed time. Sony are about to launch this Sony TV, which we will be able to stream PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3 games. You'll be able to buy a Sony TV and buy play PlayStation games on it. That becomes, then the game console almost becomes redundant.
Mm. Yeah, I've actually been surprised with plug-in boxes have lasted as long as I can. I think the problem is that it's the release cycle. People don't change their TVs as quickly as they would change a game console. And that's always been the thing. But actually, if you're talking to people in the marketplace now, TVs are now becoming almost a recyclable option. People will change their TV every 2 years now, which never used to happen. TVs were sort of 10, 15-year investments.
Yeah.
And people will now, and it's crazy because there's no real upgrade market in TVs. You can't. It's not easy to trade one in.
Yeah.
So you're putting a huge investment in and trading in 2 years. It does seem a bit strange, but I think that's why they're now incentivizing you more to change your TV, because you've got all these smart features which are constantly changing and improving.
In fact, in some ways, I'd rather have a dumb TV with just an excellent picture and not worry too much about the software on there, and have a very good box that you can change more frequently.
Yeah.
Maybe, but
I'm surprised more people haven't made use of the Visa mount idea, and maybe actually separate the actual screen from the actual smart box, because then they can say it's my new smart box every year or so.
Samsung have got the upgradable TVs.
Yeah, they have. Yeah,
but mine does that. I mean, I can get that Evolution, whatever 2014 pack it is, but there's no point, because I can use the Xbox, or I can use a Google TV or whatever. There's loads of stuff we can use, so I don't see the need to sort of faff around with it.
Yeah, I think also, Sky is such a massive player in the UK, so you've already got this massive set-top box that's provided to you. You don't necessarily need to go out and find another box, and I think maybe these set-top boxes will possibly catch on more when we do move beyond that initial box under the TV. You know, when we do move away from having to have the, you know, Sky, if they became more of a service provider as opposed to, you know, inflicting a particular box on you, then maybe that would be an opportunity. But no, I do think that Microsoft would be far better off focusing on getting those services onto different devices.
Yeah, because that was the point. If you want to watch Xbox video, there's not really a lot of options. But that is their primary system. You know, one of their primary features of Windows 8 and Windows Phone is you've got Xbox video. So it's like 2/3. You've got the phone, the tablet, and the laptop, and then, you know, the 3 screens in the cloud. Well, the TV side of it is not really that well catered for, apart from an expensive games console.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, also Microsoft has a bigger issue on its hands. I think things are slowly starting to improve, but, you know, I was you know, ranting at the end of last year, I think it was, about I was looking at buying Pulp Fiction in Xbox Video, and after Christmas it gave a warning saying you won't be able to download this content. And I think Microsoft has a serious battle on its hands in terms of trust. You know, so many of its music stores have been closed down. You know, Zune went. You had to make sure you got your content downloaded from there, otherwise you wouldn't be able to get it. They had MSN Music, that got shut down, and you were told you had to download your music, otherwise you lose access to it. There was the whole Play for Sure thing that, you know, was going to be there guaranteed to play, that disappeared. You know, and I think compared to, you know, a massive player like iTunes, or even, you know, an all-you-can-eat streaming service like Spotify, I think, you know, Microsoft still has a long way to go in terms of getting the content deals, but also, as I say, just consumers even having a trust that stuff they buy from them will still exist in 5-10 years' time.
Yeah, I think one of Microsoft's really bad habits is kowtowing to content providers. I mean, you had a really good example of that on Twitter earlier.
Yeah.
So what was that, Jason? That was
It was yeah. So I've got Xbox Music Pass, which expires in August actually, and I'm not going to renew it. And so the benefit of that is any music that matches from our music collection, you can set it to automatically download on other devices. So my Lumia 2520, I've got any music that's matched downloads from the Xbox Music Store onto my micro SD card, which is great and really convenient, except over a 2 meg connection, of course. But then today, I think it was actually yesterday, but after watching Metallica at the weekend at Glastonbury, I thought, I'll play some of my Metallica content while I'm at work. Went to play it, and it started playing and cycling through all the tracks, and exclamation marks kept coming up next to them. And initially I went to look at the micro SD card just to make sure the physical files were still there, and yes, they were. And then when I went to look at the albums in the store, because I thought, I'll just stream it then, and it said this content has been removed at the copyright holder's request. And I couldn't say all of them, but I would suspect all of the Metallica albums have been withdrawn from the store.
And these are albums which you own physically.
Own and have matched. So yes, I just need to go to the hassle of copying the MP3s off, off the PC onto the micro SD card. But the whole point of having Xbox Music was so I didn't have to worry about doing things like that.
I mean so I think it's the same thing with the way that it works with Google Music, and where anything on my machine, I put music on my machine downstairs. It's got the app running, and if it matches that with existing Google content, it adds it. If it doesn't, it uploads it. But yeah, so you say you've gone through that process, it's done the match, and now it won't play it, even though you've shown that you own it.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Now I know Metallica tend to be quite funny with their music anyway, who can and can't have it. But I've had a similar experience. I bought one of their now that's called music albums for one of the kids. I think it was now 84, I think it was. And I've downloaded that. I always make sure whenever I buy music, I always download the copy straight away. But now when I look at that in the Xbox Music Store, it says buy. But yet if I go through my purchase history, it's quite clear that I bought it. It just isn't a centralized place where I can go and look at music that has been purchased. So, we now make sure I buy everything from Amazon, because one, it goes straight into the Amazon cloud, and of course that also plugs straight into the Sonos device. So I do think that, I keep saying it, Microsoft really has found itself on the back foot, and I don't know quite how it reverses that. I think, for me, their tablet experience and their phone experience has gone a long way to reverse that trend. But from a services perspective, other than things like OneDrive and Office 365, from a consumer service point of view, they've got such a mountain to climb.
And it is very much about getting the content and the licenses. And they've always been, I mean, if you look at, I think this is actually one of the things that Apple got right in the early 2000s, and Microsoft got really wrong. That Apple dictated to the content providers, where Microsoft went along with whatever the content providers wanted. And Microsoft had the clout at that time to have actually make it something stick, and they should have done.
Yeah, because if I remember my history right, that was the reason why DVD playback wouldn't work on an extender, because it was streaming the content and they weren't allowed to do that, because essentially it meant you couldn't potentially tell the difference between a DVD and an ISO or something.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. And of course it's all legal in the UK now, so you legally can have that music on your phone.
Yes. Yes.
It does seem that they need to work on that experience, because someone like you, Jason, is the ideal typical customer for Windows Phone, Xbox Music. You should be the person that, if anybody, they can get signed up out of the three of us anyway, and probably a lot of the listeners. You're the person that should be signed up, because you're totally in that world, and it's to see if they can't attract you, then they've got an issue.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seriously looking at just taking out a Spotify subscription for all you can eat music, and just then, put, as I've already done, put our content into the cloud. But one thing I will say on Microsoft's part, that there's a guy I work with who I would never have dreamt in a million years, and today he happened to put his phone down his desk and went, "That's a Nokia." "What are you doing with a Windows Phone?" He said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Yeah, I was looking around at a phone for my daughter, picked one up for her, and decided I'd pick one up for myself. I wasn't really getting on with the Samsung Galaxy, and I'm really liking the experience on Windows Phone." He said he really likes the live tiles. So it's the possibilities are out there. It's just Microsoft needs to find a way to not monopolise on them. There's a Freudian slip.
They're not allowed to do that.
You can't do that anymore.
Capitalise on them is the word I wanted.
Yeah. I'm not sure they're allowed to do that either.
But I mean, it just shows you with the strong branding of the Windows Phone Lumia, though, it is doing pretty well, especially in the low volume. In one of my lads bought a Windows Phone, and the other one has got my Galaxy Note, and it started to crash. I think it's like loose battery connector or something. So he's now looking at getting a new phone, and even though he doesn't like Android and he's got an Nexus 7, he's looking at a Windows Phone, mainly because in that price bracket, pay-as-you-go, kind of, he's looking at less £100 mark and less. The 625 or 630 looks a really good phone, and when you compare that to I think it was the Galaxy Ace and a few other things that he looked at, they just don't seem to have the same quality feel, and I think that's something that is important for Microsoft with Nokia, is that you've got younger people coming in for Windows Phone and liking it, and they need to, like as you said, capitalize on those people.
Actually, that's something that we haven't talked about, have we? The rumor of Microsoft rebranding the Surface as Lumia.
Yeah, that was going to be the next thing. Yeah, what did you?
Yeah. I mean, that's the rumor basically was that Microsoft are looking at taking on the Lumia brand for Surface tablets. No real details in terms of whether or not that would just be for Surface RT Windows RT based devices. But I think Paul Thurrott had an article on it. It's not often I disagree with him, but he was basically saying that in terms of brand strength, that Surface far exceeds Lumia. But I think I tweeted him and said, actually, I strongly disagree. I think in Europe, I think Lumia is a really, really strong brand, certainly in terms of recognition. Lumia have been sponsoring so many adverts on, Channel 4, etc. Admittedly, that's now died away, but for looking at the Lumia 2520, and I don't think I said, but I was in a meeting where I was using my Lumia, and there was a girl in the meeting with me, and she said, "Oh, is that one of those Nokia devices?" And she saw me using it. She said, "Oh, it looks really, really good." And I think the Lumia branding is really well recognised, and I think that maybe if they didn't change it in the US, certainly changing it in Europe for Windows RT or and keeping it for Windows Phone devices, I think that would be an excellent move.
The Windows Lumia operating system.
Yeah. But you're right. To a consumer, the Nokia and Lumia mean something. Now, maybe not in the US, but in the UK, it definitely does.
I mean, it would be interesting to know, but I mean, my gut feel would be that it's more recognised than Surface.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And especially when you look at the 2520, it actually looks like a Lumia phone as well, like a big phone.
Yeah.
And it's got that style, similar styles, very distinctive style. So you maybe could see somebody has a Lumia phone wanting to get a tablet. They would think, oh well, what other devices? Oh, you can get a big Lumia. A bit like how you got very strong synergy between the iPhone and the iPad. It's got very, they've got that distinctive look.
I think that's definitely coming. I think that's where I would see it. I would see. I could imagine them retain the Surface branding for the Surface Pro.
Yes. Yeah.
And then maybe a Lumia and probably a restyle of the Surface below the what we call the Windows RT version now, which won't be Windows RT going forward, but whatever it will be.
Because that's the other room. Well, something we've talked about quite a few times, that going forward, the next version of Windows, the one that would effectively be on this Surface 2 that I've got, would be a hybrid Windows Phone combined device. So it makes sense to have the branding the same as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, and particularly when they, I do think they just didn't have enough time with Windows 8. I'm sure they would have loved to have got there. I don't know, obviously, what Steve Sinofsky's feelings were, but I think, if they, I guess there was also a lot of infighting as well that prevented it from happening. But I've always said that Windows Phone should have been the tablet operating system, and I think hopefully we'll get there with Windows 9 and Threshold.
Yeah, and there's been some more rumours about Threshold, haven't there, about this sort of split SKU.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely the way they've got to go. It just it just doesn't make sense having desktop on a tablet that's designed as a more consumption device, and I think the only missing part of that puzzle is the touch first Office. Once those iPad apps, Office iPad apps move across onto Windows, I think I would really like to see the Windows name almost fade away from that, and maybe Lumia is that branding. I don't know, because it isn't Windows anymore.
Yeah, I could see a rebranding. I mean, one of the things is that Microsoft's not so het up on the Windows name anymore.
Yes,
it's
definitely been a change, isn't there?
A few months back when I said about Azure getting rid of the Windows part of its name, that's huge, really, in Microsoft terms, and it's a sea change, and I can certainly see them dropping Windows as the name for. It'd be less confusing for users.
The OS, the underlying OS could still be Windows, wouldn't it? But it would be a Lumia,
I could actually see them dropping the Windows name on the OS as well. I think that they could it could become Microsoft Phone.
Right. Yeah.
Without the Windows in there, I think it's something which I wouldn't. I mean, it may not happen, but it's something I could see happening, and because it would actually allow them to differentiate with Threshold if you're running on a Windows device or a non-Windows device.
They should just call the operating system Microsoft Mobile. Yeah, that works on phones and tablets.
It does. It does.
So this next version of Threshold, the rumour is that we could see that a preview of some kind later this year.
Yeah, I think that would come. One interesting thing about this whole one Microsoft one OS world, I saw today that obviously today's one of the MVP days of the 2 year when people get must have been MVPs, and a lot of the MVPs in the development world were saying they're now Windows platform developers rather than Windows Phone developers.
Yes. No, I can't remember who it was now, but I saw a tweet from somebody saying that the two different MVP titles had been joined together and merged into one,
which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you're going that direction.
And the other thing with Threshold is it's going to have some perhaps adaptive UI that will change depending on the underlying hardware. So there's one install effectively, but if it's a tablet, you'll get the modern UI. If it's a desktop PC, you'll get a desktop, and if it's small like a phone, you get the modern UI without a desktop, and you can get that sort of hybrid effect, but optimized.
I just hope there's a way of forcing it to do one or the other. I'm thinking about my big screen approach. I'd like to have the hybrid approach on it, but I suspect I'll get the Windows.
Yeah.
I think I think Mary Jo Foley was saying it would kind of be based on whether or not it detected a keyboard or not.
Yeah.
and I think certainly on a small device, you're looking at some of those, the Encore 7-inch screen. You don't want a desktop, which we've discussed many times. So so that adaptive. But I think, haven't we got? Effectively, we should have an update 2 before we get the threshold.
Oh yeah. The thresholds are way away, so we should be having an update 2 fairly shortly, I think.
And do you think that will see the tiled or the windowed modern apps?
Well, maybe tiled, but I don't think we'll get the start button. So I think we might well get the tiled up apps, which I think is a huge step forward. I think that will make usability of them a lot better for people who use mouse and keyboards.
Because I guess what they want to do, they don't want to throw too much in update 2 because you've got to keep something back for the next OS.
Yeah, I'm quite keen on this whole idea of the store apps on the desktop, primarily because it's a bigger market for me for my development.
Yeah,
and it makes it more tenable for me to develop in that sphere. But I can see some counter to that as well. So, but I just like to see them open to actually have adaptive development as well, so that your restrictions slightly go away if you're developing a desktop app.
Yeah, you've mentioned that frequently.
But it would actually help, because people expect things to be able to do things on the desktop, and you can't do them. And at the moment, you can explain it by saying it's a store app, but if it's suddenly appearing on a desktop, it's going to be a bit more difficult to say, well, I can't do it because it's actually, well, why didn't you write a normal desktop app then?
I think possibly more interesting was the rumours that it might be given away free to Windows 7 users, Windows 9 or Threshold. That could certainly be an interesting move. We talked before and said tonight, that Microsoft making money from Windows is kind of going to become a thing of the past. So, it makes sense to try and get Windows 7 users to upgrade. And I think I'm seeing more and more people talking about Microsoft distancing themselves from Windows 8.
Yeah,
they'll go for the big branding thing and move.
Windows 1.
Windows 1. Yeah, well, there's one Microsoft, isn't it? So, Windows 1. Right, what else do I want to catch up with them before? If you mentioned the Roku boxes, they've now released apps for Windows 8.1 and Windows Phone. Any of you got a Roku box?
I haven't, but I have got a Now TV, which thinks it's a Roku box.
Well, they are, aren't they? I think.
They are basically, yeah. So, and it works well with that.
Right, yeah. So that's a nice option. Anyway, it's good to see somebody actually developing Windows apps.
It's a good app actually. It works quite well. Saves having to reach for the remote control.
Yeah, absolutely. What else we have? Oh, we mentioned this calendar thing. It might be fixed by the time the podcast goes out. Well, hopefully it's fixed by the podcast goes out. But if you've got automatic updates on, well, it's probably too late. But if you've not, then
I have.
If you see the calendar update on Windows Phone, just hang on in there, because you can't actually create any new appointments.
No, I think hopefully they'll get that one fixed pretty quickly.
Yeah,
it's kind of ironic, isn't it, that they've taken this stuff out the core operating system so they can update it more frequently.
Yeah,
and then probably go and break it.
I wondered whether it was something to do with perhaps preview code of the Windows Phone 8.1 or something like that, because you think someone would have tested creating a new appointment before they push the app out. So I wonder whether it's because we're on some kind of older build or something like that.
Yeah, it does seem. I mean, I know we've been privy to the developer preview on Windows Phone, so previously this time would have passed without us being any the wiser. But it does seem like the Windows 8.1 update has just dragged on and on.
Yeah, I mean, it should be out. Well, in fact, we said the other week, didn't we? It would be out possibly by the end of the month, and we're in July now.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, when you look back over the history of Windows Phone updates, this has gone on every single time. It's just we haven't been privy to actually having the new version and felt the time passed. Microsoft have kind of kept it under their hat, but yeah, we say things are improving the developer preview, but they just need to get these updates out quicker.
Yeah, I'd like to see. I think I saw on some site saying that selected phones might start getting next week in Italy. So whether that's an indication of a wider rollout, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, because I know I think tweeting this week saying that Nokia used to have a page, well, still do have a page for all their previous updates against each carrier. They literally named and shamed everybody, and unfortunately, I just can't see Microsoft maintaining that page anymore.
No. They updated all the Bing apps today.
Yes, yeah, I saw that.
No
Not
release
what's
notes.
changed. Yeah, the release notes are we didn't break them.
Yeah, that's the release notes from now on. I updated my Flickr app because I found a bug over the HTTPS thing. So Flickr changed their API so it's HTTPS only, and I did update the app about a month ago to do that, and I found one other HTTP connection I was using so it broke it. So I updated that yesterday, but it took 25 minutes from submitting the app to getting it approved. Now that's got to be some record time for Windows.
Updates do go through pretty quickly now. I actually managed one in 10 minutes, which I thought was quite amazing.
I mean, it used to be 3 days, didn't it? Minimum.
It did, yeah. It used to be 3 days, but that only applies to updates. New apps still take a while.
Right, because that was going to be the question. I said, I think they are not doing the same testing because part of the Flickr app is you've got to upload a photo to Flickr, and I don't think they've done that this time, whereas previous times they have.
Yeah, they're getting a bit. I think maybe a little bit lax, but
well, but I mean, they've already tested that because they know it works from the initial build. So whether they've done some kind of binary, because they probably would have seen some binary comparison because they've seen there's 2 lines of code changed in the whole thing. So it's not like there was a massive change to the app, but I thought it was pretty fast anyway. It was nice to be able to get a bug fix out pretty quickly.
I had a weird experience with one of the Universal apps the other day. I bought an app on my phone and it said it was a Universal app, and then went to use it on my Lumia and it let me buy it again.
Yeah,
it didn't have the download link.
That could be quite legitimate. It's up to the developer to set that flag. So the developer can actually choose to charge you for both.
Okay. That explains
which is bad practice in my opinion, but
yes.
Yeah, because in the store, when you publish I think it's on the Windows Phone side, you can say which one of these packages it links to, so you can link it back. So even though it's a Universal app, because my TDL app that I did doesn't say it's a Universal app, but it is because I've linked them in the store. But I think there must be a couple of different ways of doing it.
Because when I looked in the store on the Lumia tablet, it said, Universal app, buy this app once and use it on Windows and Windows Phone. So, but like I said, I didn't mind. I don't mind supporting developers. It's something that I wanted and would have bought on both devices if it wasn't a Universal app. But it was just the experience was just a bit, odd.
I think it's probably also that developers are still getting used to how the whole thing works as well.
Yeah. And like I say, it was just the fact it had the tag from Microsoft saying, buy this app once and then use it across Windows and Windows Phone. But anyway, I don't mind supporting the developer.
But it's possible to have a Universal app and another app that's got the same name and not a Universal app, I suppose. I think that's probably what.
If you haven't linked it, that's exactly what you could do. So in that case, they've done actually something wrong in the way they've put it on the store, and they shouldn't have been allowed to do that. So that's an interesting thing to say, right?
Yeah.
It's up to you. You when you submit your phone package, you can link it to a Windows package. You manually do it. You say this links to that. So I guess that they haven't done that right somewhere along the line.
Yeah, like I say, it was a message from the store. It was a Microsoft message saying buy this app once and then use it across Windows and Windows Phone. So
it's been tagged as a Universal app with a Windows Phone, but they're not linked to the Windows Phone app. So.
Yeah,
right. Got you. Fair enough.
Which you shouldn't be able to do. So.
Yeah, but I mean, like I say, I have no qualms with supporting the developers. So, and it was only about $1.99 app, I think it was.
Yeah.
Cup of coffee.
Oh yeah, that's what they all say. Your mortgage if you get 2 cups of coffee nowadays. One app I wanted to mention before we go as well is the media browser app for the iPad has been updated. So it's a very nice looking app actually.
Done a really good job on that.
Yeah. Check that link in the show notes, and everything else. Link for everything else that we talked about in the show notes as well. I've got to try and get my music streaming set up now on my PCs, because I was just saying before we started the show, I've got a little pile of home servers down here, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with them because they're all unplugged. I suppose the HP ones are now go on my vintage shelf, and the micro server, I guess I could rebuild and do something with that. I'm not quite sure.
Well, the microservers are really useful still. So
Yeah.
if you don't want them, I might take them off you.
Yeah.
But it's the Centre for Computer History. That's always a good place to send things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Maybe my HP home server, the original one, could go in there.
Yeah, might be good.
Right. So we better wrap up then. So Gary, what have you got on Fascinating Tech at the moment?
Well, Fascinating Tech launched summer issue yesterday. So yesterday when we recorded. Start of the week if you're listening on the recording. So that's the summer edition. Lots of really good stuff in there. There's a feature on a wonderful thing called the Airwheel, which is a self-balancing unicycle. I've actually got some really good video of that. Shows Ruth attempting to ride it. She did very well actually, in under about 50 minutes training. So yeah, very worthwhile looking at that. And there's an article I've written which follows on from our chat we had the other week with James from Vox Commando, which explains how I actually integrated all that stuff. So well worth a read.
Yeah, excellent stuff. And what's your Twitter as well?
At Gary WMA.
Okay, good stuff. And Jace, what's yours?
I'm at Database Jason, still patiently waiting for Cortana.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't mention that, did we? Where's Cortana?
Where are you?
My internal contacts are still saying the end of June, which is a little bit difficult. Unless they actually mean next year. Because they actually never said a year. So
and I'm waiting for something that should arrive. I'm hoping by next week's show. We'll wait and see.
Yeah.
I hate that thing. Preparing for dispatch. I don't really like it.
Should be a Prime member.
Yeah, well, I've got enough services. I don't want to pay for anything. Excellent stuff. Right, so we should be back next Tuesday, 8 p.m. UK time, in live chat room. Or on the YouTube video is a nice high quality, and you can get the podcast from iTunes, everywhere else. Zoom Marketplace, still a thing. Still
amazing.
Yeah, we're on Stitcher and everywhere else. So, thanks, Gary and Jason. Thanks, everybody in the chat room. I will see you next week.
Take care.
Yeah. Take care. Bye-bye.
Right.